Story 1. I often remember embarrassing moments from years ago more vividly than happy ones. It is like my brain is running a highlight reel of my worst hits on repeat. Story 2. There will always be someone who does not like me. It does not matter what I do, say, or how polite I can be. I will always hit a nerve, even if I am not doing it intentionally. I always have enemies. That can be quite exhausting. Story 3. I was truly beautiful and perfect when I was younger. I could have had a very successful life if I had self-esteem and focused on myself. I spent the best years of my life in serious emotional pain because of things I could have easily overcome. Story 4. The deepest pain I have felt is knowing I was not always enough for the people I love, no matter how hard I tried. That quiet ache taught me to forgive myself first before expecting others to understand. It is lonely but also the start of real healing. Story 5. I will never be good enough for the ones I truly desire to be good enough for. No matter the blood, sweat, and tears I have given in my lifetime to make others' lives better or become a better version of myself, it just never matters. That is a hard pill to swallow as I get older. Story 6. I could probably exist with nothing but a bed, food, and a computer with an internet connection and be mostly content for the rest of my life. Story 7. I can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone, and most would not even notice. Am I the only one? Story 8. It's still a while away, but I have given up on retiring ever. It just feels as unattainable as winning the lottery. But just like the lottery, you cannot win if you do not try. So I try anyway, planning for retirement. Story 9. I will always be poor. I am disabled and unable to change my situation by getting a job. I am able to cover my bills most of the time, but sometimes I have to go without things like medication because I do not have $600. My joy in life is when a stray cat lets me pet it or acknowledges me by saying meow. Story 10. No matter how hard I try to have good friends and think of them as good people, one or the other always ends up betraying me. Maybe I will forever be a loner. Story 11. I can barely feel positive emotions anymore after years of bottling everything up. The only time I feel any sort of positive emotion is with my girlfriend or when I pretend to be happy because it is expected of me in a situation. In the second case, it feels real momentarily, but as soon as I am alone again, I notice that the happiness I felt is just an act that I put up to feel better with myself. Story 12. I am 54 and in trauma therapy. I just realized that my parents' screaming fights and emotional volatility were not my fault when I was a toddler and child. It is amazing to let go of that guilt. Story 13. Grief is the only thing I am capable of feeling. I don't feel anything but that. I can feign emotions, but most of the time when I'm not fully grief-stricken, I feel nothing. I went to my son's birthday party and was confused because I felt an emotion I didn't fully recognize. After some reflection and asking around, I realized what I felt was love for someone else and love from him. I have love for only one person, but I don't know what it feels like to be loved by anyone other than my son. Logically, I know what love is and how it's supposed to feel, but I'm scared that I'll never fully understand it outside of the occasional brief glimpse. To me, this saying cuts deep. They're permanent. I'm not. To me, this means that trauma, emotional and physical scars, are permanently etched in me and will remain forever, as things cannot be undone. But I am not permanent, and my only escape from this never-ending grief and pain is death. I have no family other than my son, and I pine for a family I have never known. I am desperate for closure, but I know I'll never get it. All my loved ones have been ripped away from me in one way or another, and I don't know how to deal with this. All I can do is go day by day because I have no other choice but to live with a deep pain that no one but a few can understand, and feelings that will never go away. They're permanent, I'm not. This life has to end someday, and that fact gives me some comfort. I don't say this to garner sympathy or pity, as I don't want that, but it just makes me feel a little better that someone knows, even if it is just a stranger on the internet. I know this went a bit off topic, but I just needed to say this. Story 14. I wasted so much time not loving and accepting myself. I was so hard on myself in many ways, and now I look back and regret every day I spent in that headspace. Story 15. How I am my worst enemy. Even at the age of 53, I am always inclined to destroy myself rather than embrace myself. Story 16. I put everyone before myself because I do not want to hurt people or destroy their lives, even if it benefits me. Story 17. I will probably die single. I am good looking and take care of myself hygienically and otherwise. I am just awkward with making eye contact, and nobody seems to do so anyway. Dating applications are not good for me either. Story 18. It takes and will always take a tremendous amount of effort for me to accept myself and be happy. Between regular and social anxiety, body dysmorphia, feelings of inadequacy, and a general failure to accept that I am stuck looking like this for the rest of my life, I do not know if happiness is in the cards for me. It is just too much. I recently stopped having sex with people who use me and do not care about me, and my life is now a desert. Story 19. I have not had the positive impact on people, especially those younger than me, that I truly wish I had. Additionally, I am much closer to the end of my life than the beginning. Story 20. I will never be young and thin again. From now on, it is only downwards. I am too lazy and undisciplined to lose weight, and I do not even care enough. Story 21. That I allowed myself to be lied to and abused for over a decade. That I allowed myself to let the people around me get frustrated and hurt. That I allowed my own goals and desires to slip away for so long under the pressure of someone else's expectations. That I showed up in a relationship with someone who had no capacity to properly form one. That I married a man who took a break from me twice and was unfaithful during his third attempt to take a break. That I never got to truly experience what it means to be loved because the man I married had no capacity to love. Story 22. All the perfect attendance awards I received as a child were because I did not have responsible parents, and they never took me to a pediatrician or a dentist. Story 23. I took all the best things in my life for granted, and now that they are gone, I realize I will not get another chance at happiness. Story 24. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a coping mechanism for a difficult home life. My father was an alcoholic binge drinker, and my mother was extremely codependent. Smith. Story 25. I no longer have the energy to believe that I can achieve great success in my life. Back in school and college, I was an optimistic person, but when reality strikes, you realize that you are just another participant in the rat race. Story 26. No one remembers or cares about me. Even when I reach out, I get ignored or outright denied. I try to be friendly and be myself, which is a little unusual, but no one texts me, calls me, or responds when I engage with people outside. On social media, I do not receive a single like or comment despite posting a variety of content. It feels like I am not worth 5 seconds of anyone's time. I am glad I have my cat and pug. Story 27. One thing I have recently realized while thinking about my relationship with my mother is that not being able to maintain relationships with others might mean that I should not be a parent, because it could also affect my child. Story 28. I have always liked the idea of pregnancy more than the reality of being a parent. I love holding other people's children. I enjoy being a semi-distant role model, but I know I would perpetuate a terrible parenting cycle if I ever had children of my own. Story 29. I am a slacker and I could not finish anything in one sitting. I tend to procrastinate. While at school I was doing fine, but when I entered the workforce I became a slacker. To this day, I have no idea why. I just cannot give it my 100%. Story 30. Once I hit my 20s, I felt this to my core. I realized I would never do anything notable in any aspect of life due to my natural lack of dreams or desires. What is even worse is that I know I am very capable of doing many things, but that gets thrown out the window if I do not even want to do anything. It honestly eats away at my soul, having no ambitions in life. I just exist to exist. I accepted this fact many years ago as well, but that definitely does not take away any of the feelings it leaves me with, not at all. Story 31. I am a comfort seeker and avoid uncomfortable situations that are good for my growth. If I left my comfort zone, I could have achieved more in my life. Story 32. There was always a choice. I just did not make it. All those times I thought I did not have a choice and I just accepted things as they were because that is the way it is. I was just too scared to acknowledge it and do something to change my situation. I made my own life worse. Story 33. The fact that even though I am exceptionally good-looking, it will not last forever. Story 34. My dream of having a calming home and a loving family was the biggest sign of my being neglected and abused. I know it was simple, but I was surviving the entire time. Story 35. I don't have much motivation. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder contributes to it. I keep my house clean and take care of my children well. But other than that, I have a very hard time being motivated to do most things. I make very detailed to-do lists daily to try to combat it, but I normally have 30% of the tasks incomplete and just move them to the next day. I have tried many different methods. I think I might just be inherently lazy. I have a vision in my head of what to do, but it never really comes to fruition. I come from a very hardworking, very determined type of family, so I always feel inadequate next to them. Story 36. I'm lazy, really lazy. I don't know how I have managed to be successful at all in life because, given the choice of doing anything or nothing at all, I'll always prefer nothing. I am currently hyping myself up for a hike this morning because I have to continue this weight loss journey, but I do not want to go. Story 37. I would rather try to understand or explain someone's bad behavior instead of just accepting that someone I love could hurt me. Story 38. I will never lose my extra 30+ pounds, and I will probably be alone for the rest of my life. As sad as it seems, I am really okay with it. Story 39. I, along with everyone I have ever known, will have to either accept death or spend the rest of our lives fighting an unwinnable battle. Story 40. I think I am an awful person. I get the sentiment from people that I am just overthinking it, but I really struggle with it. Sometimes I do not struggle, which is the worst part. I just want to be a good person, but I cannot even tell if I am manipulating myself anymore. Or maybe it is severe undiagnosed obsessive-compulsive disorder. Regardless, I have treated people poorly and I am pretty sure I am a pathological liar. I hate myself because it is diminishing the one relationship in my life that I actually care about. I just want to be good. Story 41. Attempting to become something might have been an exercise in humiliation. Avoiding trying definitely was. Also, it was pointless. Edit. But that is what fear does to you if you let it. So you stayed small. Story 42. Loving my parents has a backlash greater than I will ever be able to overcome. They are completely insane. Story 43. I have been right all along, and there is no point in denying it. I do make other people believe that I am a good person, but I am not. Story 44. All the shame and guilt I have carried most of my life was because of a mother who does not even remember ever putting the pressures and expectations of perfectionism, purity, saintliness, and beauty on me as a very young child and throughout my life. I just learned she never saw it that way or remembered saying any of those things, just this week. Now at 35, I feel ridiculous. I feel like I have wasted so much of my life and am struggling with addictions and many emotional and mental health issues that may never go away. Story 45. I am becoming a less successful version of my mother. The same negative traits but not as accomplished in life. Basically, I am turning into a temperamental failure. Also, I am ruining my life with procrastination, which I believe stems from undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But do you want to know why I have not had that evaluated yet? Yes. Story 46. I am lazy. I grew up very privileged and I am incredibly smart and creative. So I was allowed to pursue hobbies and interests with abandon. I was never really forced to work for most things because there was money to pay for them, and my parents did not want me to have to work while I was in school. I realize how incredibly lucky I am to have been born into that circumstance. The downside is that I did not develop a good work ethic. I work very hard for things I am passionate about, but I do not have the grit to do something I despise forever just because I need the money. It has made me lazy. Story 47. That nothing I do matters. If I die today, people will be sad and maybe mourn for a while, but eventually, they will move on and forget about me. Story 48. If I had been dealt better cards, I might have been able to get a proper education and a well-paying job. Story 49. I seem to value friendship much more than my friends do. Being an only child in a fractured family situation really affected my mindset. Story 50. My most recent 2 years of happiness was a ruse, and it only took a year for it to unravel into the depressed state I am in now, questioning everything. I am not sure if it was because of who I allowed myself to associate with or because it is a reality check. Story 51. As a child, the adults in my life were not only neglectful but also unnecessarily cruel. I internalized much of it. It has taken a lot of work to get through. It has impacted and will continue to impact my future relationships. I do not anticipate finding genuine love or friendships with meaningful depth. Story 52. I am so terrified of abandonment that I allow people to consistently let me down and walk all over me. It does not matter how upset I get or how many times I say I am done. Even when they completely shatter my heart and push me aside, if they call or need help, I show up. I feel pathetic. People say I am a good person. Am I really, though? I am literally breaking my own heart trying to heal everyone else's. Story 53. Nothing I have ever done or will ever do will matter, and my family would have been better off if I had ended my life early rather than being a burden. Story 54. I will most likely always feel alone, even when I am surrounded by those I love and who love me. Story 55. I am too old to experience the young love I missed out on, and I am convinced it will be the reason I end my life. It is the only thing I wanted in life. Story 56. Even with a medical degree and many privileges, I have not found success yet. I used to be very shy, and I still deal with some generalized anxiety. I grew up with very strict parents and never really took the initiative for much. I moved to another country and completed another degree, but I am still struggling to get hired. Many people my age are already quite successful, and sometimes I feel bad for myself and for my parents. That being said, I am not giving up. Moving abroad has taught me many life skills and made me far more independent than I ever was before. Every day I am trying to be better. Story 57. I'm probably going to be a loser forever. I'll likely be stuck living with my parents because of my anxiety and depression. I don't even know why I bother looking for a job or going back to school. I'll probably fail. I am going back to school for my associate's degree, and after I obtain it, I plan on getting my bachelor's degree in marketing. However, the bachelor's degree in marketing requires math, and I don't think I'm smart enough to pass the required math classes, which are finite math and business calculus. Story 58. That I am not disciplined or focused enough to work in an office job or anything that requires intense concentration all day. Story 59. I was my own worst enemy for most of my life, engaging in self-sabotage and putting others' needs before my own, sometimes to my detriment. Story 60. For years, I have not shown myself any compassion. I have always been hard on myself, and in my mind, I would whip myself like some priests I have read about doing. Realizing that I have no compassion for myself made me sad. I am the only one who can help myself. We are born separately and we die separately. I see that the worst people always keep themselves treated with honor. What was I missing, unlike them? Now, I am softer on myself but still working on it. Story 61. That my lack of friends was truly a choice and that isolation was a satisfaction I could only live with for so long. Story 62. Very few people enjoy my company as much as I enjoy theirs. I used to have quite a large social circle but realized it was always me reaching out, trying to arrange things, being ignored or stood up. It got to the point where I stopped trying and only saw friends on birthdays. Then I arranged my 32nd birthday this year, bought food, decorated, and created a playlist. I invited 12 people I was close with for years and still considered friends. Showed up. A few told me they couldn't make it. Most canceled on the day. Few didn't even respond. I was eating birthday cake for breakfast for a week. What made it worse was I was considering going back home to see family, but my friends suggested I have a party, so I didn't. Story 63. The trauma I have experienced was so severe that the possibility of ever having a regular life is none. I cannot undo it, and my trauma-driven behavior will require a lifetime of effort to manage. Story 64. Some days, I look in the mirror and see a version of myself that is more survivor than thriving. The dreams I had feel distant, like old friends I stopped calling. Story 65. The saddest fact I have realized about myself is that sometimes I am my own biggest obstacle. The person I should trust the most is the one I doubt the loudest. It is exhausting. Story 66. I feel very depressed and disconnected from myself. Time passes, and my life feels unfulfilling. I do not know how to make friends, have never participated in extracurricular activities, and have few hobbies or interests. I have frequently thought about ending my life since I was 8 years old. Story 67. I have always been the last priority, the one left behind. I told myself it was just part of growing up, that people drift apart and stop reaching out like they used to. But when I hit my lowest, it hurt to realize I had no one. I have friends at work, sure, but the ones who once felt like home are gone. That kind of silence cuts deep. Story 68. The only reason I am a good person is because I am scared of people thinking I am a bad person. I do not actually care about people or helping them, but if I say that, people will think I am an unpleasant person, and I do not want that. I only do good things because you are supposed to, not because I want to. Story 69. I will set a goal, for example, working out in the morning, be committed by the dumbbells, mat, and bands, and then not stay committed. I tell myself I will eat very well, but then I fall into the trap of eating unhealthy food. It is frustrating. I just started again. Let's see how it goes. Story 70. I sabotage many great moments in my life because deep down I feel I do not deserve them, even though I constantly yearn for them. Story 71. This underlying, interminable sadness is just how the rest of my life is going to go. I have been clinically depressed and anxious since I was 10 years old. I have had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder my entire life and was only diagnosed when I was 41. I am tired. I am tired of living with this sadness. I am tired of getting up every single morning, pushing through, and realizing that this dark pit inside of me will never be filled with the happiness that everyone around me seems to experience naturally. I am filled with despair and loneliness every single day, and I do not know how to comprehend having another 40 years to endure this darkness inside me. I do not think I have the strength to do it. The only thing that keeps me going at this point is my cats. They are the reason I get up in the morning to make sure they are taken care of. They are the reason I maintain my home so they can have a comfortable existence. They are the reason I show up to my job every day so I can afford things for them. They are the reason I do not immediately crawl into bed and exist in a sad lump after I finish work because they deserve to be played with and have joy. They are the only reason I am still alive. I am in therapy and I participate in my therapy. I go twice a week, and we are doing eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. We are working through things. Please do not message me saying I need inpatient care. I am not having suicidal thoughts, I promise. I am not actively making plans or anything like that. I am just tired. This kind of anxiety and clinical depression for 32 years takes a lot out of you. Story 72. The happiest days of my life have already happened. My wife passed away 2 years ago. Nothing can ever make me as happy as being with her. It also means the worst day of my life is behind me, which is somewhat freeing in a way. Story 73. I have been in a constant state of hypervigilance and trauma responses since I was little. Calmness really scares me. Story 74. Wasted too much of my life doing absolutely nothing. Now that I want to try and experience my life, I am essentially considered a child because I married the wrong woman. I might as well just die young. Story 75. That my stalker has made me an anxiety-riddled mess who is afraid to be out in public alone. And that has damaged me somehow. Story 76. I'm almost certainly going to commit suicide in the next 10 years. I will never have children. I will never marry. Story 77. Meanwhile, there are psychopaths running the world, and you all have sad facts. Wear them like a badge. All together now. Dicks out and helicopter. Story 78. I am very intelligent in some ways and slower in other ways. Takes me a long time to learn new concepts. Story 79. That last year was most likely the last good year I will ever have in my life, and I will never love or trust anyone the way I loved my best friend. Story 80. I had a dream of moving to New York and pursuing my career there. I held that dream in my mind for decades and worked on saving and planning, until reality woke me up, and I realized it could not happen. Story 81. I have a degenerative disease in my back. I have to fully accept that at some point, there is nothing I will be able to do to fix it, and that my pain will not go away or be fixed. I have done physical therapy, and I do not want to be on strong pain medication in my 20s. However, it is something I have to accept and live with, knowing there is not much else I can do other than hope and maybe consider surgery. Story 82. Prone to self-sabotage, especially when I stay in one place for too long. I need to keep moving. Story 83. For some reason, nothing impresses, interests, or pleases me anymore. Not even my own achievements in life. I swear I am not depressed. I do not know why. Story 84. I am a fraud and lie about many things that are nothing to be ashamed of. To be honest, deep down I am very miserable because of this. The worst part is I don't even know where it all went wrong. Story 85. It doesn't just feel like everything is my fault. Everything actually is my fault, but I don't know what I'm doing to make it that way. I think I'm just a psychopathic narcissist like my parents, and that truly horrifies me. Story 86. I have been incredibly sheltered my whole life. Do not get me wrong, my parents did the best they could to raise me, but maybe if I had been exposed to some hardships, I would not be the helpless and soft dependent I am today. Story 87. I have reached a point where I have shifted from thinking that I might be able to do this when I am better off, to believing that I will do this in my next life, because I know that this one is not improving in the time I have left. Story 88. I hate myself so much that I do not think it is worth trying to date anymore. I somehow have a boyfriend, but I think it would be easier if I just got him to hate me so that when I am gone, no one will miss me. Story 89. The two people responsible for my suffering were the ones I used to love deeply. Only one of them is blood-related. Story 90. I have been through more than anyone knows. Losing my baby haunts me. Every time it crosses my mind, I remember how deeply I failed. Story 91. I am an alcoholic and can never just have a couple of drinks. I weigh 140 pounds, and social situations almost always result in blackouts, even if I do not necessarily embarrass myself. Not remembering conversations or nights is awful. Story 92. I will never get to marry the love of my life and have the life we planned together. I now have to grieve and carry his love with me every day. It is very painful, and the only reason I am still alive is because he would want me to live my life. I am miserable every day without him. Story 93. Lost potential. I don't think my life is doomed by any means, but I have gone from regularly working with lawmakers to advocate for foster and homeless youth and excelling in school to barely being able to leave the house. I was a success story for foster children. Many of the children I worked with have gone on to do amazing things. I have a strong support system and people I love, but I sit at home most of the time. I offer the support I can to others. I am trying to finish my degree online, though it would be a miracle if I do, and a master's degree is out of the question. I just can't help but hate that, due to reasons beyond my control, I lost my future. Genetic and viral-triggered disabilities have taken so much from me. I wish it had at least been my fault. Story 94. I have Asperger's syndrome and well-diagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I miss social cues and have gotten into a lot of trouble. Basically, I am friendless and often avoid people. Story 95. I was given the parents that I was given, and sometimes that just means your life will not be like some other people's. Burning bright and burning fast, and trying to feel okay with being below average in just about everything. Story 96. I do not have any friends. When I eliminate the illusion of friends that social media creates, I have nobody. Story 97. That I will never again be as thin and pretty as I was in my 20s. But I spent my 20s thinking I was fat and ugly. Story 98. My childhood assaults have haunted me for years, impacting my way of thinking and acting. I am not sure if I will ever come out of it. Story 99. I cannot maintain a long-term relationship as long as the analog backup is absent. Digital dependence is simply inauthentic for me. Story 100. Because I am a black woman, I will always have to be 10 times better to receive a minimum of recognition. No matter what I wear, it will not protect me from harassment, as happened when I was dressed from head to toe and a man tried to kidnap me. Story 101. I do need help at times. I am an adult with a toddler and a husband and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 2 years into our relationship. It has now been 8 years and we are married and loving life. However, I struggle with sensory processing and mood regulation. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is another challenge that makes me feel inadequate. My brain loves to think and work but cannot regulate itself well. I have never asked for help and have always had to manage on my own. It is very hard for me to recognize and ask for help, no matter how small the need. Establishing boundaries is also difficult. I often feel like I am not a good person in life, only a morally nice person. Story 102. I have borderline personality disorder. The harsh reality is that I will ruin every relationship and friendship I ever have. I am destined to be alone. Story 103. I am an energy vampire. I recharge by watching energetic people like Gordon Ramsay. Anyone who is passionate and good at what they are doing. Story 104. Back when I could have needed help, it was inaccessible. Now that it is technically accessible, it is too late to be useful. Story 105. I wasted my youth thinking I was ugly and fat, but when I look back on old photos, I realize how wrong I was. If only I could have seen myself for who I really was. Story 106. I feel like I don't remember what being happy feels like. I always just say, I feel relieved. Story 107. I have depended on others my entire life, which makes me a burden, and loving me is a sacrifice. Story 108. I spent so much time avoiding socialization and trying to embrace myself being different that now I am longing for any human connection and struggling to fit in or even have a decent relationship with people, even when I see them almost every day at work. Story 109. I do not have boundaries, and it has led to a lot of trouble in my life. It is something I need to take responsibility for. Story 110. I will probably never talk to my mother again on good terms until the day she dies. Sometimes that makes me feel terrible, but then I remember why I don't speak to her and I feel better. Story 111. I am the one who cannot commit to my partners in a relationship. I want to keep dating others. Definitely not at the same time though. I have never cheated and never will. However, I cannot stay in a relationship for more than a year or two. It is always the fear of losing some freedom that keeps me from fully committing. At this point, I feel I will probably end up alone. Story 112. I am concerned that my poor mental health will contribute to raising anxious children. I am sad that I cannot give them the confidence they will need in life, although I try to show them that I love them every day. Story 113. I prefer my own company more than others. Not that I am fun to be around, but things are not as chaotic. Story 114. I am locked into a life where I will never be able to fully live my true self. It is all right because there are people I love who are important, but I am not living my whole truth. Maybe I will find that is more important later in life, but for now, it is what it is. Story 115. I have wasted many opportunities, yet I am still here, not learning from them and continuing to waste more. Story 116. I found out at the age of 6 that I was incurably insane. I have been dealing with it ever since and am pretty good at it by now, just tired. Story 117. I am not the main character in this world. It was very humbling to realize that when I was hurting in my mid-20s. Story 118. I can do everything right in my life and still end up on the losing side. It has been hard for me to comprehend, but I think I am slowly starting to understand it now. Story 119. Unhappiness led me to drink too much. I quit in 2014, but the result was cirrhosis. I am very sad about this and feel like my own worst enemy. Story 120. I need a partner to be happy. No amount of self-care makes me as happy as being with someone. Not everybody can love themselves and all that. Story 121. I'm hard to love because I don't trust people easily. I've been backstabbed, cheated on, and lied to, so now I'm always on guard when people want to be friends or when a woman shows interest in me. Story 122. I love my significant other more than he loves me. Essentially, I am just his live-in maid, cook, and bed warmer. We barely have sex. He does not show me any form of affection. I cannot leave because I cannot afford housing in my area without him, despite making over $100,000 per year. Story 123. There are far fewer moments of pure joy than I realized, only because daily stress and worries about tomorrow fill my headspace. I have to tell myself to stop and enjoy the moment, so I try, but it is always clouded. Story 124. That no one will fight for me, that I am alone in this world and have given up. The only person I can truly count on is myself. Story 125. A life of reasonable happiness and contentment is not in my cards. I will always struggle with mental illness and other illnesses that exacerbate it. On the upside, it is somewhat freeing to realize that is just impossible. I am broken, and that is just how life is. Some days I will feel awful, and occasionally I will feel like what I interpret as a normal human, and mostly I will be somewhere in the middle. I am broken is an objective statement on how my body and brain function. It is not a value statement on my being. Story 126. I have been alive for 21 years, and my parents have never said the words sorry or thank you to me in my entire life. I have had no contact with them for a year. Story 127. My extremely introverted, shy, and reclusive nature makes me forgettable, and also makes it difficult to get close to people. I am often seen in a negative light, even based on my appearance. I was told I look like an uninterested and unapproachable person. Story 128. I do not turn heads anymore like I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. Sometimes I feel almost invisible. When I was younger, I felt like people noticed when I walked into a room. Story 129. The same thing I realized about all of us is that we are all just victims of circumstance. You can do everything in your power and beyond to make good things happen and still be forced to watch it all fall apart in your hands. Nothing will change regardless. Story 130. I leave a trail of fire and destruction behind me. Failed jobs, friendships, and relationships. I can't get it right. Story 131. My situation of being on a government retaliation list and unable to find work will never improve because politicians of both parties allow this unconstitutional practice. Most government contractors claim no retaliation, which is completely false. I fear that being on a suicide roster will not improve at all, although I pray that it does. Story 132. I am an adrenaline junkie who loves extreme sports. I am very good at almost everything I do, sometimes completely skilled, including riding motorbikes and having tattoos. I have military experience, an attractive appearance, a good job, and a great wife. I have severe agoraphobia, which occurs at the most random moments. Skydiving? Been there, done that. The very next week, I had a panic attack just boarding the plane for no reason. Story 133. More about my life than myself. I lost my youth to bad luck and nothing else. Nothing I did, just bad luck. Story 134. I'll never be easygoing or completely secure. You know those people who say that once you get into your 40s and 50s, you no longer care what people think? Well, I still care. A lot. I've been told I'm quite attractive, even at my age of 55, but most days I don't believe it. When someone compliments me, I never know what to say. Being silly in public? Forget about it. I'll never be able to just let go and dance like no one's watching, even though I wish I could. Story 135. I am unlucky. Luck is normally distributed like everything else. Most of us end up in the middle of the bell curve. Some of us end up on the left or right-hand side of the curve. I am somewhere on the left-hand side. Took me a long time to come to terms with this. I am not a victim, and I am not the villain in my own story. Things just went sideways too many times for me to ignore or rationalize. Story 136. I will have to fight every day to be mentally healthy and heal from trauma. I will never be done. I will have chronic health conditions for the rest of my life. Every day is a fight to survive. Story 137. Yes, I had previously dated some difficult partners, but honestly, a lot of the dysfunction in my romantic relationships was my own fault. I have been in therapy for years now and am truly putting in the work to be the best partner I can be. Story 138. I will never see the future I wanted for myself. I never wanted much, I feel like. Just a house and a family, maybe a small garden. I am just waiting for my mother to pass so I can follow. Story 139. How I was treated as a child is how I have been treating myself as an adult. There is a lot of internal hard work ahead of me to change that. Story 140. I have wasted most of my potential over the past 30 years. Despite knowing I can do better in many ways, I am still steadily wasting my potential. Story 141. That I am my own enemy, my own bully. No one has said something as hurtful as I have told myself. Because of that, it is so hard to keep going. Story 142. I discovered that I already had all my mother's fears and negative traits in my personality, but I realized that I am working on it and trying not to forget my positive qualities that are different from hers. Story 143. Both sad and liberating. If someone does not like you, it could be because of the way you respond to them. If they are too bossy, inquisitive, vulgar, or anything that irritates you, they will think you are grumpy, touchy, or hypersensitive. So it is about them too. Sometimes there is nothing you can do about it. Story 144. I tend to sabotage relationships, not only romantic ones, because I am scared of being too vulnerable. Story 145. As a transgender man raised in the countryside and in an industrial town who did not have much contact with the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community until my mid-20s, I will always be too queer for society in general but too normal for them. Story 146. This will sound like a cop-out. Like most kids who grew up with no father around, it has made me determined never to have children, as I am terrified the same weakness is in me to fail as a parent. For a quick insight, my father left when I was 2 years old. He was sick for 17 years, which left him a hollow shell of who he used to be. I do not actually blame him now that I am an adult, although I hated him throughout my childhood. He had a second family with 2 children, my half-brother and sister, and he left them 15 years later as well. He is a decent man who grew up in hard times with abusive parents and was placed in the foster care system as a teenager. He never raised a hand to anyone, but clearly, the combination of life experiences has broken his ability to function in society. Coming full circle, I would rather have no children than start a second cycle of broken homes and a childhood I would never wish on anyone else. My wife and I have been married for 10 years. We both would like to start a family, but this is something we have talked about that I feel strongly about, and she is very understanding. I guess I feel like a failure for not participating in what is essentially the whole point of life. Additionally, if we choose not to have children, we will be the end of the family tree on 4 sides. That adds to the pressure and disappointment factor for family members. Story 147. All my life I've been told the same thing by my teachers, my classmates, and everyone else. It may sound self-centered, but the reality is that I've always been told I am a very good person. I remember an anecdote from when I was little. In my class, we played a game where we gave each other letters. I had to write to a girl who had an illness. I don't even remember what I wrote to her, but I remember my teacher crying and telling me that I was a very good person. At the time, I didn't understand anything, but it had a huge impact on me. When I grew up, I kept hearing that from other people, but I didn't give it much importance. Then one day, I was frustrated and anxious, wondering why the people I love don't treat me with love. Then I realized I am the kind of person who gives everything of myself to others. When I love someone, I show it. When someone I love is feeling bad, I am with them. Even when I am feeling bad, I put my feelings aside to try to help others. Then I receive praise telling me I am a very good person. But when I am the one who needs help, there is no one who will give me the same as I give. I don't think anyone else is willing to do it, because putting aside your feelings to help someone is something not everyone is willing to do. So the sad thing about myself that I have learned over time is that I am doomed to give everything and receive nothing. And the worst part? I don't even want to change that about myself because I think it is beautiful that even if I can't have someone like that, someone else can. You can call me stupid. I know I am. Story 148. Because of my chronic illnesses and mental health conditions, I will never get to be happy like I thought I would be. Story 149. Often, what I think is selfless on my part is actually motivated by a need for approval and belonging. I live for positive attention. Story 150. The moment when I felt most loved, helped, and understood in a romantic relationship was based on something false. Story 151. I have subtle evil villain tendencies and I dislike myself for it. Also, my face is asymmetric, and other people will never love me as much as I love myself. Story 152. I was the worst person to myself for many years. I was grumpy, hated myself, said many bitter words to myself, and I wasn't a victim of the world but of my own actions. Story 153. The saddest thing I have realized is that I am the reason for my own shortcomings and try to avoid that fact by blaming others. I am nothing more than a hypocrite who likes to self-sabotage rather than allowing myself to develop and acquire problem-solving skills. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.